With a huge star wrapping up his WWE run and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. With Gran Metalik no longer a part of WWE, it seems he can use at least the latter portion of that same name outside the company, as the Wrestling Observer newsletter noted. The story behind the Metalik name is that he owns it and used it in Mexico in 2007 on the Indies and even CMLL prior to becoming Mascara Dorada in 2008. WWE owns Gran Metalik, but not Metalik. He would have more name recognition in the US as Metalik, of course, but it's not necessarily a plus since he wasn't used well in WWE. He's been working as Mascara Dorada for NJPW US shows and did one match as Mascara Dorada in AEW. From what we were told, he's planning on being Mascara Dorada going forward in NJPW and when he returns to CMLL. Right now, it's very tough for him because he wants to work in Japan and Mexico, but until his green card comes through, and who knows when that will be since he's been working on it for a long time, the hope right now is May, but that's out of everyone's hands. He can't leave the US. When he gets it, he'll return to Arena Mexico for at least some dates. Anna Jay has been out of action with dislocated ribs from the powerbomb she took from Willow Nightingale off the ramp and through a table, except they overshot the table and Jay's back hit the floor on the January 11th tapings in Los Angeles. On the sessions, AEW referee Aubrey Edwards was asked about fans thinking she is attempting to take on a character in the ring as opposed to simply officiate the match. As she said, I think when it first started happening, it was obviously something that I'm just like, oh, Twitter eventually is going to hate me because I'm a woman. So that's going to just happen, and I'm really good about not listening to criticism that doesn't matter. I listen to constructive criticism. That's sort of where I've been focused. If Jericho is putting me in a match and he's shoving me and then wants me to shove him back, I'm going to do it because it's ultimately not my decision. It's his decision because it's his story, and I'm there to help elevate the story that he's telling. So it's not like I try to be a character. It was just sort of like they figured out that I have a very go-getter personality and very no-nonsense, and as people picked me in matches, they're like, oh, well, if I shove her, I get a lot of heat for that, so let's do that. Cool, great. And it just sort of happened naturally, but it was never something I intended. It was just something that happened because the wrestlers asked me to do things in matches, and I do them. On his FTR podcast, Dax Harwood talked about his involvement in the Pinnacle stable and how MJF prevented Tully Blanchard from getting more promo time. Me and Cash, we would sacrifice us and sacrifice our cool stuff to give something to Tully always. Whether it was in the match with, we'll talk about it later, Darby and Sting, where Tully was the factor and the reason the match ended, we always gave him time to talk because if we didn't, then our group was dead in the water because then it was just three people together. So before this promo, I remember talking to Max and I said, hey, I think we should allow Tully to do something, some of the talking, because that promo was 10 minutes long or whatever. Max was like, no, I really think I should do all the talk. I'm like, yeah, but we've got one of the greatest talkers of all time, Tully Blanchard, and he's our manager, and he's the reason we're all tied together. I think he should say a little something. Max didn't see that my way, and so Tully just sat in the back, and so did everyone else. When it comes to an injury update on an AEW star who has been out of action with a torn ACL, Fightful reported that as of the last update we'd heard on Layla Hirsch was that she was slowly getting there after having knee surgery in May. There was word that she'd resumed in-ring training recently. With Eddie Kingston seemingly quitting AEW on Dynamite this week, president of the company Tony Khan responded saying, I have talked to Eddie since Wednesday, and I would encourage people to stay tuned to pro wrestling. Stay tuned to AEW and other forms of pro wrestling. Of course, there are a lot of exciting things happening in the sport in AEW and also out metaverse of pro wrestling, including New Japan and the launch of the new Ring of Honor. A lot of exciting things happening. I have had the chance to talk to Eddie about that, and I say stay tuned to the wrestling business and you'll see what happens next. Talking to Chris Van Vliet about the potential for a Dudley Boyz reunion, Bully Ray said, physically, I don't think so because I don't think that Devon can do it anymore. We've had the conversation, and for the world to know, because people on social media take things out of context and run with, it's ridiculous. Me and Devon have been like this since day one. There has never been an issue with me and Devon. All this that you like to run with these clickbait headlines, F off. With her previously making a return at the 2022 Women's Royal Rumble, Molly Holly has been busy with a role as a producer for WWE. Talking about a return to television, she told Busted Open Radio, I really feel complete in my television career. I feel like I accomplished everything I ever wanted to. I don't think there's anything I could do now that would be any better than what I did when I was in my 20s. Talking about a star making his first appearance in AEW, the Wrestling Observer noted that Commander, who debuted on Dynamite in the ladder match with no build-up at all, was not under contract when put on the show and is very much on WWE's radar. Commander actually is under contract with the Chaos promotion in Mexico, and not sure how that would impact his ability to actually sign with WWE or AEW, but he couldn't sign with either right now without the approval of Chaos. Giving details on the current status of AEW star Miro, Sean Ross Sapp reported, thus far, there's been nothing new on Miro since our last update, although the two sides did meet around the time our report dropped. We're told that he's healthy and ready to go, but haven't heard an update on creative discussions between he and All Elite Wrestling. Miro has several years left on his contract after signing a 4-year extension a year or so ago. Touching on wanting to have one final match for WWE, Hall of Famer Goldberg told Sports Illustrated, you never say never, especially in wrestling, and they owe me one. That's all I can say. I made a deal with the devil and I did my job, and they owe me a retirement match. At the end of the day, at 56, it's not something where I'm sitting by the phone waiting for a call. I've got a few ideas of how to do it on my own, possibly in Israel, so never say never. Responding to this, it was noted in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that WWE doesn't owe Goldberg any more matches on the very lucrative deal he signed, but the time frame for the contract hasn't expired, so he can't work anywhere else. On the Load Management podcast, Roman Reigns touched on his relationship with CM Punk as he said, if you've watched wrestling for the past 10 to 15 years and you love it and it's like within your blood, then you probably have some kind of feelings about that guy. I know I do, just by doing one of these things, he made my job a lot harder over, 5 to 10 years ago. But if it's something that the fans can get behind and that it can really make them, sink their teeth into the product and really, dive into the creative with us, I'm willing to do it. I don't like the guy. I mean, I don't know many people that do, but I'm willing to put business first and make really good content if that's the case. But yeah, he probably has to be slapped around a few times in order to get his mind right. Talking about the original plans for the Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn rematch, the Wrestling Observer noted the decision was made for the March 4th show in Toronto to switch the main event from Reigns and Sikoa versus Zayn and Owens to a Reigns versus Zayn rematch. With where the current storyline is, having Zayn and Owens already teaming up before they get back together makes no sense storyline-wise. This is a real test in the sense the Toronto audience is savvy enough to believe the title won't change hands on a house show, but it's still a special house show match that they are the only ones getting. Tickets were at $5,244 for the show at the Coca-Cola Coliseum when Reigns was announced, and within a few days, he got that up to $5,807. A few days later, the announcement of Reigns versus Zayn got it to $6,390, and it could sell out. Addressing the possibility of CM Punk making his return to action in AEW, the Wrestling Observer said, Tony Khan is legit in a really hard position. Bringing Punk back and not putting him on top probably won't make Punk happy, and putting him on top perhaps he'll draw very well, but that's not a lock, and those who carried the company when he was gone won't be happy he's back if he's on top. Then you have the talent that won't want him back unless he makes amends, and that would be the best thing for everyone, and try and apologize to smooth things out, but I don't know that is in the cards, which is why the situation becomes becomes hard. Will people leave over it? Maybe, and that has to be figured in, but Moxley and Jericho won't leave, I don't think, since they have long-term deals. Punk is probably not far from being able to return and has said that he wants to wrestle again. Khan is in a contract year. Maybe Warner Bros. Discovery could just pick up its option for one more year at a much higher price point, and WBD has financial issues and is cutting way back. The son of pro wrestling legend Ted DiBiase, Brett, has pleaded guilty to charges that could see him face years in prison, as WLBT wrote. Another person has pleaded guilty to federal charges in connection with the state's largest welfare embezzlement scandal. On Thursday, Dale Brett DiBiase pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy to defraud the United States in U.S. District Court. The plea comes more than 2 years after he pleaded guilty to charges in Hinds County Circuit Court. All three pleas are tied to DiBiase's involvement in the largest public embezzlement scheme in the state's history. In addition to his sentence in state court, the former wrestler faces up to 5 years in federal prison and a fine of up to $250,000. I applaud our federal partners for continuing to pursue federal charges for each and every individual responsible for stealing from Mississippi's most needy and vulnerable citizens, said District Attorney Jody Owens. As I've said before, this case is far from over, and both the state of Mississippi and the U.S. government will continue to pursue all those involved in this fraud. DiBiase is one of several people tied to the fraud, which involved the embezzlement of millions of dollars in temporary assistance for needy families funding. He was paid $48,000 through his business Restore 2 LLC, using a series of fraudulent and false claims to receive payment. He also was accused of helping cover up these payments by falsifying documents, invoices, books, reports, and ledgers. Investigators say former DHS workers created invoices to pay DiBiase for teaching classes about drug abuse, but he did not do that and instead was at a luxury rehab facility in California. It seems that Brock Lesnar could be leaving WWE soon, as No DQ wrote. According to a report on PWInsiderElite.com, Lesnar was saying goodbye to some people at Raw this past week, and Lesnar allegedly said that he is finishing up. A source noted to PW Insider that Lesnar is not necessarily done after WrestleMania 39. At this time, it's unknown if Lesnar's contract is coming up or if he will just be taking an extended break from WWE. PW Insider also confirmed a previous report that Lesnar versus Bray Wyatt had been pitched for WrestleMania, and it's believed that plans were changed. Likely due to Brock Lesnar's request. Lesnar was reportedly booked to defeat Bobby Lashley at Elimination Chamber prior to the finish being changed on the day of the show to Lashley winning by disqualification. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.